I am Ben Shaw from Ben Shaw Training Limited. In this video I'm going to share with you everything you need to know about the LGV Driver CPC Initial Qualification Module 4 Practical Demonstration Walk Round Test. Although this test is a practical test which is conducted at the LGV driving test centres, it doesn't actually involve any driving. Instead, it requires you to do walk round checks demonstrating your knowledge of the vehicle and what checks you would need to make to ensure that it is safe and legal operation by you, the driver. The test should last no longer than 30 minutes, during which time the DVSA examiner, the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency examiner, will ask you 1 or 2 questions from each of the 5 sections included in this test. In each section there's a possible maximum score of 20%, in which you need to achieve at least 15% minimum score in each section, with an overall score of 80%. At the test centre, first impressions really do count, so it's important to get the examiner on your side from the start. Ensure you arrive in good time, usually 10 to 15 minutes before your test appointment, with the appropriate vehicle that meets the DVSA minimum vehicle requirements. Bring your plastic photo card licence. You don't need to bring your paper one as that's now obsolete, so you don't need to bring that if you can't find it. It's also worth bringing your LGV Module 2 Theory Pass Certificate. Now, wait in the waiting room and the examiner will come out of their office and call your name. Promptly stand up, look smart and hand your licence to them. The examiner will then begin checking your licence to make sure that the photo is a likeness to you, and then they'll shine an ultraviolet light onto the licence to make sure that it's not a fake. They will also ask you to read and sign the insurance and residency declaration. Don't take too long over this. Basically it says that the vehicle is insured for the purpose of the test and you live mainly in the UK. Sign your name, making sure that you keep the signature in the white box and make sure the signature matches the one on your licence. If your licence has an 01 code on the back to say that you need to wear corrective lenses, make sure you've got these with you as well. Once the examiner is satisfied and has handed the licence back to you, put all the documents safely back in your pocket and take them with you, as you'll be asked for them again if you pass the test. You'll then be asked to lead your way out to the vehicle. Be sure to have the key with you. The examiner will usually introduce themselves to you and ask you what you'd prefer to be called. At the vehicle, the examiner will ask you the chosen questions for your test. Be sure to answer them fully, as the examiner will be ticking off any correct keywords or bullet points that you mention. If you don't come up with all the relevant points that are required, the examiner will usually push you for more answers or to elaborate on what you've already said. Please also remember that every care has been taken in making this video to make it as accurate as we can. It is worth pointing out though that these examiners are all different, but they should all be testing the same, but they don't. So if they're asking you something slightly different or asking you to elaborate a little bit differently, just go with the flow. During the test it's easy to start doubting yourself. If you think of something that you may not seem correct or relevant, it's still worth mentioning no matter how silly you think it may sound. If it's on your mind, just say it. People in the past have failed because they thought it didn't sound right. You won't be penalised for any wrong answers, just get as many key words out of your mouth, and if the examiner happily moves on, you've said enough. At the end of the test, the examiner will reveal whether you've been successful or not. If you have been successful, they will ask to see your driving licence again, and they will issue you with a pass certificate, which will cover you until your driver qualification card arrives in the post. The examiner will then give you your licence back. They don't need to send that away. Successful LGV Driver CPC Initial Qualification Module 4 candidates are then covered to drive large goods vehicles commercially for 5 years from the date they pass the test. Then, within these 5 years, you'll need to complete 35 hours of periodic training, which will then cover you for another 5 years. The periodic training can be done in a one-day course every year, or it could be a few days at once, or it could be done a full week course, which will then cover you for 5 years. You can even do a 5-day course in the first year after passing your initial qualification test, and that will cover you then for nearly 10 years. We've put together the questions that you could be asked to demonstrate to the examiner during the test. They won't necessarily be in the same order as we've done it, and they won't ask you all these questions. These examiners are usually quite friendly, and they understand that some people have mental blocks when they're under pressure. So if you're struggling to come up with the relevant answers, try not to panic and see if you can pick up any hints from the examiner. They can't give you the answers and they can't let you off, but remember, they don't really want you to fail, and they may try to help you in a subtle way, so look for the clues. You're parked on the left on a busy main road. Please show me how you would enter this vehicle safely. Imagine you're stood on the pavement, walk around the front of the vehicle, cautiously checking to see if there are any traffic coming before stepping out into the road to the driver's door. Check for traffic in both directions, open the driver's door fully and use both handrails as you climb up, adopting the 3 points of contact. Remember, don't use the steering wheel or the door. Please can you show me all the precautions you would take before starting the engine? So make sure the doors close securely, go through the cockpit drill by checking the seat position, setting the mirrors correctly, checking the parking brakes applied and the gear levers in neutral. Please now show me how you would safely leave the vehicle. Ensure that the vehicle is secure with the parking brake applied, the transmission is in neutral, the engine is switched off and remove the keys. Before opening the doors, check both mirrors and do a right shoulder blind spot check. Open the door slightly wider, looking back to double check that it's still clear. Turn around and climb down, making use of the grab rails and adopting the 3 point of contact as you climb down. Remember, don't use the steering wheel and don't hold onto the doors. You intend to drive this vehicle for the first time. Please show me how you would check the weight of the vehicle and the dimensions. So you'd identify the height sign in the cab, which is usually above the windscreen on the driver's side. Check the vehicle's gross weight by looking at the VTG6 plate, which is displayed somewhere in the cab. Be aware of the vehicle's length and width. We have a dimensions card displayed in our vehicle that tells you this. Please walk around the vehicle and explain to me what projections and overhangs there are on this vehicle. So identify any overhangs. You've got the front bumper and the rear end swing, which could sweep over curbs when turning, causing the vehicle to collide with street furniture, pedestrians and other vehicles. Mirrors are projections that can come into contact with street furniture, pedestrians and other vehicles. Describe what allowances you would make for these projections and overhangs when driving. So good all-around observation is required at all times, as well as extensive use of all the mirrors, especially to check for rear end swing. From the driver's seat and externally, explain the daily safety checks you will make to this vehicle. You can use a daily pre-use checklist, so remember to have this with you, and you can walk around pretending to tick it off as you go. Firstly, starting from the driving seat, do a quick cockpit drill, seat, mirrors, handbrake, neutral. Switch on the ignition and wait for any system checks to be completed. As you start the engine, you can pull slightly on the steering wheel to check that the power assisted steering is working correctly. Switch all lights on, including hazard lights and fog lights, and climb down correctly from the vehicle. Point out the speed limiter setting sticker and the 2 yearly tachograph calibration sticker. Close the door and explain to the examiner what checks you will make to the front driver's side tyre, wheel and spray suppression mats. Minimum of 1 mm of tread across the central 3/4 of the breadth of the tyre in a continuous band around the circumference of the tyre. Check the sidewalls for cuts, bulges and cords showing. Make a visual check of the tyre pressure, and if in doubt, check the tyres with a pressure gauge and make sure it's set to the manufacturer's guidelines. Check the wheels for cracks or damage. Look at the wheel nuts for signs of movement or dirty rusty marks around the nuts that might indicate that they are loose and that the thread on each of the studs is even with all the others. Mention that you can make use of yellow wheel nut indicator pointers if they are fitted. Check the spray suppression mats are secure and in good condition. Walk around the front checking the lights, pull the windscreen wipers away from the windscreen and check for splits and damage to the rubbers. Check the number plate is in good condition and clearly readable. Mention that you're constantly listening for any air leaks. Check the passenger front tyre, wheel and spray suppression. Don't go into as much detail as last time unless the examiners are hinting for you to do so. Just say you check the tread depth, the sidewalls and the pressure. Check the condition of the wheels, check for signs of the wheel nuts being loose and check the spray suppression mats are secure. Check the side marker lights all the way down towards the rear. Check the rear passenger side tyre, wheel and spray suppression as with the last one, but make sure you mention you're checking between the twin wheels for any foreign objects or rocks that might be jammed in there. Check all the rear lights including the fog doors and the number plate. Check the rear number plate as with the front one. Tell the examiner you reverse up something reflective to check the brake lights or ask somebody to help you check them. Check the back doors are secure and mention you check inside to see if it's either loaded or empty depending on what it's supposed to be. And then check the last tyre wheel and spray suppression as before and check all the side marker lights as you walk down there too. Check the diesel cap secure and there's no sign of leaks or damage to the tank. Climb correctly back up into the cab again and then check your mirrors are positioned correctly, clean and not broken. Your windscreen's clean and clear of any cracks, chips and free of obstructions. Make sure the windscreen washers and wipers work correctly. Check the horns working. Make sure you've got enough fuel for the journey. Check the instrument panel that all the lights have gone out, the battery, oil and ABS lights. Check the air pressure gauges as well are in the green zone. Also give the engine a good rev and check in the mirror for any excessive smoke coming out of the exhaust. Mention to the examiner that you'd also do a rolling brake test. Don't actually do this unless the examiner is hinting for you to do so. You could also check the speedo as you move forward, or you do that as you drove off. Then switch the engine off. If the examiner is prompting you to say more, you still haven't said enough, so run through the list again and see if you can work out what you've forgotten. You're about to make a long journey on this vehicle. Show me what checks you would make to the vehicle's fuel system. So you check inside the tank to check how much fuel you've got in there. Check the cap security, making sure the rubber seal's intact. Check the condition of the fuel tanks and the mountings for any corrosion or damage. Check there's enough fuel for the journey by checking the gauge. Explain what precautions you will take to ensure this vehicle remains in a serviceable condition, especially in very cold weather conditions. So anti-waxing additives need to be added to the vehicle in cold weather to stop it from waxing. You suspect a brake fault on this vehicle. Show me what checks you would make to confirm that the compressor is working properly. So you empty the air tanks by pumping the foot brake. Restart the engine and charge the system so the gauges are back up into the green. Show me what checks you would make to identify any air leaks. So a physical check of the air system ensuring air lines are serviceable. Switch the engine off and listen for any obvious leaks. Okay, the examiner is going to ask you what tyre, wheel and spray suppression checks you could make to this vehicle. Now you may have already answered this question, and we went through it earlier on the pre-use check, but you've got to do it all over again, okay? So don't get lazy with it. You're going to check the tyres to make sure that they've got at least 1 mm of tread over the central 3/4 of the tyre all the way around the circumference. You're going to check the sidewalls are in good condition, no cuts or bulges, no cords showing through. You're going to check the pressures, make sure that the pressures are set to the manufacturer's guidelines using the appropriate equipment like a tyre pressure gauge. Then you're going to check the wheel nuts, okay, so you're looking for signs of wobble or movement. You're looking to check that the threads are all equal on each nut. You're checking that there's no dirty, rusty marks coming from behind the nut, showing that water's getting behind it because it's not tight up. Also mention the little yellow pointers that you point in pairs, and if one starts to wander off, then you've got a nut coming loose. Then you're also going to check the spray suppression mats. You're going to check that they're secure and that they're clean. Then you're going to move on to the next wheel. You're going to do it all over again, okay? Except for the rear ones, you've got to mention about the rocks being stuck between the twin wheels. You're about to leave this vehicle unattended. Explain why you might consider parking. So if you're parking overnight, only park in a well-lit, secure, reputable vehicle park. Where possible, park with the rear doors up against a wall or another vehicle. Demonstrate and explain what checks and security precautions you would take. So you could activate any immobilizers or alarms. Make sure you remove the keys and lock the doors. When you get back to the vehicle, do a security walk around check to make sure that the seals haven't been tampered with or the curtains haven't been slashed. Dealing with a fire. The examiner is going to say, I'd like you to imagine you're driving on the motorway and flames appear from your engine compartment. Show me how you deal with a small electrical fire. Okay, so we're driving on the motorway. We need to get the hazard lights on. So check the mirrors, put the hazard lights on. Get onto the hard shoulder as quickly and as safely as possible. Make sure you put your handbrake on. Into neutral, switch the engine off. Make sure you ask somebody to contact the emergency services. So if you haven't got time to go to the telephone, some passers-by stop, ask them to go to the telephone. If you've got an isolator switch on the battery, you can turn the isolator switch, so make sure you know where that is on the vehicle that you're taking your test on. Now, how would you deal with an electrical fire? What fire extinguisher would you use? Well, you wouldn't use anything wet, so water and foam is out, so you could use powder or CO2 gases. Now, another fire question is, they could say that you're driving down a motorway and flames appear around one of your tyres. How would you deal with this emergency? So same again, check your mirrors, hazard lights on, get onto the hard shoulder as quickly and as safely as possible, switch the engine off, climb out, isolate the battery isolator switch, and ask somebody to contact the emergency services for you. Now, one of the questions they ask you is which fire extinguisher would you not use on a fuel fire? Okay, so you wouldn't use water on a fuel fire because that could just cause it to react with it and it could cause it to spread in. You've just had a break before boarding a cross-channel ferry and fear that there could be illegal immigrants or any contraband such as drugs or cigarettes or alcohol secretly hidden on your vehicle. Show me what checks you would make to this vehicle before driving through customs. So you're going to check everywhere. Now, wherever you are when the examiner asks you this question, if you're sat in the cab, that's where you're going to begin your search. Okay? If you stood outside, that's where you're going to begin the search, but you're going to make sure that you incorporate the cab as well. So if you're sat in the cab, you're going to look absolutely everywhere. Imagine that you just stepped out for just a few seconds, you went to the back to check the back doors were locked, and somebody hid a package inside your vehicle or hid themselves. If you've got a sleeper cab, they could be hiding under the bed covers. These are desperate people, so you've got to look everywhere for them. The little packages could be stored on your vehicle. You go through customs, you do the dirty work for the guys. They just take a photo of your vehicle and text it to their mate in Dover or wherever the ferry is going to, and they know to watch out for you coming off the ferry. And if you get cleanly through customs, then you've done the dirty work for them, so then they're going to get this package back from you next time you stop, or they might even, you know, attack you to get this package back. But whatever. So we're going to make sure we don't get ourselves into this predicament. So we're going to check. We're going to start in the cab. We're going to look behind the seats. We're going to look under the seats. We're going to look in any glove boxes or cubby holes. Open every single one. You're going to check in the little cubby holes under the radio, any that are up the top. Check around the wheel arches for anything that's been hidden. Around the front. Open the front grille up. Check in all the little nooks and crannies, make sure it's fine. Got steps here. Check there's nothing stashed in there. Looking around the wheel arch again, then we're going to go in the cab and we're going to look under the seat. We're going to look behind the seat. We're also going to look in any side lockers. Now, on these, you've got to pull the cable from inside, and that flicks that open. Keep hold of it. Check that nothing's been stored in there. Close it again. Then you're going to check on behind the cab, make sure nobody's hiding there. Make sure nobody's on the roof under the wind deflector. On top of the battery box. Look under the chassis there, make sure nobody's hanging on underneath, nobody's strapped themselves to or sitting on any spare wheel carriers or anything like that. These are desperate people, remember. Around the back here looking for anything hidden anywhere. There. Open the doors. Open the doors. Have a look in the back. There's nothing that shouldn't be in there. Then walk right back around the other side. Do exactly the same around this side. Look on top of the fuel tank. Now with the fuel tank, you've got to open up the cap and have a look inside. Okay, there could be a little drinks bottle, like a 500ml drinks bottle that's had drugs put inside. It's watertight, got a little bit of string around the top. Drop it in your diesel tank, and then they can trap the string in the cap. So you open that and look for any string dangling out. That's what the examiner wants to look. We want to look at the top of the diesel tank, but also look inside the diesel tank for any drugs. Also, stand back and have a look on the roof of the body. So really go back, stand on your tiptoes, and go back a bit further than what I did there, but just pretend that you're looking on the roof. You could also, when you open the back door, look to see if you can see the outline of anybody on the roof hanging on for dear life. Okay. When driving a large vehicle, it's important to consider how the load is affected by movement. I'd like you to point to the centre of gravity on this vehicle. If you've got an unloaded vehicle, the centre of gravity is going to be reasonably low. I'd say maybe just a little bit higher than the load, where the load bed is. Okay. If you've got the vehicle, if the vehicle's loaded, the higher the load, the higher the centre of gravity. I like to imagine that if you were to put a giant skewer through the middle of the truck, okay, from front to back, right through, you know, maybe just a little bit lower than the Volvo emblem on there. So you put a giant skewer through, and if you could pick it up and turn the vehicle, it shouldn't be bottom heavy. That is the centre of gravity, okay. So where's the centre of gravity on this vehicle? They'd like you to point to it. So I'd say, like I say, just below the Volvo emblem. If you're going down the body, just below where the web address is. Okay, just under the our website there. If you're using a different vehicle, just a little bit up. If you think about the weight of the vehicle, I mean, I know it's tall, but there's not that much weight high up, really. Yeah, it's got leverage that could, you know, on corners it could make it just lean a little bit. But think about the weight that you've got underneath the load bed. You've got all the axles, the prop shaft, you've got the engine and gearbox, all the wheels and everything. So there's a lot of weight down low on trucks, but the higher you load it, the higher the centre of gravity goes, and then on corners it could tip. Okay, so the examiner is going to ask you to explain what forces movement has on the load. So say for instance, rapid acceleration could cause the load to move back, harsh braking could cause the load to move forward, and then turning sharply, the load wants to carry on a straight path, and as you turn, centrifugal force makes the load tip over. Your fully laden vehicle is ready to make a delivery. Show me what checks you would make to ensure that the vehicle is not overloaded. So, the suspension. You're going to look at the vehicle, and if it's parked on firm level ground, check it's not leaning to one corner, there might be a broken spring, or the load might not be evenly distributed. Then you're going to check to see if the suspension is down. Okay. To do that, you could look at the steel springs. So if you've got a steel spring, it's shaped like that when the vehicle's empty. They generally bend down when the vehicle's at the correct weight, or they bend down when it's overloaded. So check that the steel suspension is smiling and not frowning. Okay. Now, our vehicles have got air suspension, so they've got a self-leveling system built into them, so you wouldn't really know if that was overloaded. But don't say that to the examiner. Make sure you mention that you check that the suspension's not sat down. Also, other clues that the suspension sat down is that the wheel arches that go over the top, the back wheels there, if they're too close to the top of the tyre, it's because it's squashed down too much. If the spray suppression mud flaps are nearly dragging on the floor, it's too low. You can also look at the tyres and check to see if they're bulging. You know, if there's too much weight on it, it's pushing the tyres out and flattening them out. So you can check the tyres as well. And if you look at the back wheels, if the twin wheel tyres are nearly touching, then that's a clear indicator that you're overloaded. And also, if you're still unsure as to whether it's overloaded or not, take it to the nearest weighbridge and make sure it's not overloaded. So say for instance, this vehicle's an 18 tonne, if you took it onto a weighbridge and it weighed more than 18 tonne, you're overloaded. And then another part to that question is the examiner will ask you to show them where the plating certificate is, the VTG6 plate. Okay, so you need to know the location of that inside your cab, and you need to know how to understand how to read it as well. So you need to know what the gross weight is, which is 18 tonne for this vehicle, what the train weight is, which is 40 tonne. And it's 40 tonne because we've got the drawbar hitch on the back and all the air brakes. If it was just a normal truck that didn't have the drawbar capabilities on, it'd have an extra 3.5 tonne put on top of the normal gross weight. So that's so you can pull a normal little 3.5 tonne trailer. You also need to know where the axle weights are. Axle 1 is the front one, axle 2 is the rear one. So you've got to make sure that when you're positioning a load, it's not overloaded on either axle, the front or the back. You'd be expected to explain where the load would be positioned on this vehicle and what type of load restraining device you would use for this type of load. So i.e. a dolly knot for rope, ratchet straps, chain tensioners, or a load tensioning bar. Now at the test centre they have a load securing trolley, and you'd be expected to demonstrate using these devices. Now there are a few different questions when it relates to this, but they're all very similar. I could say on this empty vehicle you've been asked to collect half a load of palletised paper. Or a different question could be, you've been asked to collect half a load of steel plates. Or again, they could ask, you've been asked to collect half a load of empty steel cages inside your box van. Explain where you will position this load. So the load wants to be, if it's half a load, it doesn't want to be too close to the front, so that's going to put too much weight on the front axle. It doesn't want to be too far back either, because that's too much weight on the back axle that could cause the load to bob. So it wants to be away from the front, favouring the back axle. Remember, the back axle has got more strength because it's got the twin wheels. Now, even if you're asked to collect half a load of empty steel cages, most people will put them to the front to stop them from moving. That's not right, okay? For the purpose of this test, you need to say evenly distributed throughout the length of the vehicle to give suitable axle weights. You also want to make sure the load is as low as possible to make the centre of gravity low, so heavier items at the bottom, lighter items at the top. At the test centre they've got a load securing trolley very similar to this, and there's 4 different types of securing the load. So we're imagining that this is a truck, okay, so we've got rope and a dolly knot there that's going over the top of the vehicle. We've got ratchet straps, same again, that's going all the way over the top. We've also got chain tensioners, and that goes around, imagine you're going over the load and then under the chassis, and that makes a full circuit there, so we've got a load tensioning device there for the chains. We've also got a tensioning bar or a cargo stay. Now this is designed to go between the sides of a box van, so it stops the load from moving backwards or forwards. So I'm going to show you individually how to use each restraining device. We've got the ratchet straps, that's in 2 parts, the ratchet and the strap. You've got the chain tensioners, same again, that's in 2 parts, you've got the ratchet and the chain. Then you've got the tensioning bar, or cargo stay, that's for your box vans, and then you've got your rope. So which one you choose depends on what question you get asked. So if you get asked the half a load of palletised goods, you could choose rope, but it's the easier option to choose straps, and straps are much stronger. If you get asked the steel plates, then you need to use chains because it would cut through the strap. Chains are a lot stronger. If it's inside a box van, you struggle to anchor the straps to or the chains. So the torsion bar that wedges between the sides, that's the option you choose then. And rope, well, just don't choose rope, that's the easy option. So if you've been asked to collect half a load of palletised paper, you're going to use a ratchet strap. So we're imagining that this is the vehicle. We'll hook the strap on one side and throw the strap over. Take out any twists, make sure it's nice and straight. Then we pick up the ratchet. Now the ratchet has got a little tooth there that stops it from opening. To open it, you need to pull the little handle down, and that will then release it. Then the teeth there catch, so you keep pressing it around, and that turns this cylinder here. Now this cylinder has got a groove through it that you feed the strap through. So make sure that you can see through the strap, so you can feed it through. If it's too far down, you're going to be feeding it into there and you can't get it out again. So to turn that, put that until it's all the way through, and you can see. So feed it from the back towards you, with the handle facing towards you. Pull that through. Once you've got that, you can hold just one strap then. Throw that over. Pull it up a little bit higher than what you think you need, and then you can just pull it down to hook it onto the hook, and then pull it tight again. Now as you can see, that starts to turn, which nips up the strap and stops it from slipping. And you just got to keep pumping it until it goes tight. Once you've got it nice and tight, you pull the handle back and tuck that under the teeth there so it's nice and secure. Now one thing we need to do is to tidy this up, because we don't want this flapping as we're driving down the road. So to tidy this up a little way that we can do it, we can just quarter this, and then this will just feed under there, tucked away, nice and tight so it can't flap going down the road. Now to release that, we pull the little handle again, let's untuck all the leftover strap, we can put that back over there again. And we're going to pull this handle back, and that allows this to go all the way up. Now if you can just see there, the shape of that is different. It's what we call a cam. So as the cam comes round, that then touches the bit there that is actually holding all the teeth in place. So as we pull it up, we push and it goes with a bit of a crack. Okay, and that's what I call breaking its back. You've bent it round. The cam is now pushing that down so that the teeth will move freely. And then you pull it away, fold it back again, and then you can just feed it all out. And then once you're finished with that, you just put it all away again where you found it. Now just a little tip for future, when you're wrapping these up, there's a couple of different ways of wrapping it up. You can start with the hook and you can wrap it around in itself. Okay, but I don't like that way, because when you're throwing it, you're throwing a metal hook and it could hit somebody on the head and do some damage. So the way I do it is to get the stitchings so that they're facing you, and then turn it on inside itself, and then roll it up, get it tight to begin with, and it gets easier the more you do it. So I'm going on the inside where the stitchings are. Them stitchings, remember, are the rating for this strap. So it's 5 stitchings, that means it's a 5-ton strap. And we roll all that in. And then when you're throwing it over the vehicle, you keep hold of that, you're only throwing the strap, so if it did hit somebody, it shouldn't injure them too much. So I'll put that back with the ratchet, wherever you got it from. So imagine you've been asked to collect half a load of steel plates. Steel plates, we need the chains. Okay, simple. So the first thing to do is pick up the chain from one end, and then you're going to feed it through the top of here. We've put some insulation tape on here, but at the test centre there'll be black plastic around there, and you'll be able to see the chain marks as well. So you're going to take one end, and you're going to feed it over the top. So you feed it over the top until they're about even on either side, and then you get hold of one end and feed it under there. Same again, there's a black sheath there. So you feed it through. So that it's on the inside, and then same with the other side. so they're both quite even. Now when it comes to the chain tensioners, okay, these are a ratchet again, they've got teeth on. There's a little toggle there that you switch from one way to the other. Which way it's going to go, nobody knows, because if you turn it over, it changes. So what you've got to do then is just watch whether the threads pull in or they go out. Now one's a left-hand thread, one's a right-hand thread. That's so that they either pull in together or they go out together. Now when you start with this, you want to start with them out as far as you can, okay? Because when you couple it up to your chain, you want as much ratcheting space as possible. Now these will come out, so let me just see if I can get one out. Okay, so that's come out there. If it comes out on your test, don't worry about it. Just screw it back in again. Now which way you need to screw it just gets a bit confusing. Yeah, that's in there. Check that one's alright. So you want them out as much as possible, but obviously not all the way. Now what we've also got here is the hooks that we're going to use. Now the chain goes between the hook. Don't try using the point. Right, I'll just slip off. Let me show you what I mean. So we've got the chain here. We don't stick the point through the link, because it won't fit anyway. We slide one of the links. Through there. Screw it back in. That's the way I think it goes. There we go. So then we're going to put this between, like I said, remember, we're imagining we're going all the way around the vehicle and under the chassis. That's the sort of idea that they're using here. So we're going to make a full circuit with these chains. So we're not going to use these hooks. They're just going to dangle down. We're just going to reach in. So we're going to reach in, make sure you don't bang your head. We're going to get hold of there, and maybe about 6 inches away from the edge we'll hook onto there. And then we're going to hold that. We're going to pull it as tight as we can. We want to get out as much slack as possible, because we don't want to run out of thread when we're winding it in. So try and have these threads even. That one's stuck out just a little bit more. You can see it's just really slack, is that might fall out. But if we go the wrong way, that could fall out. But if they're quite even, that's obviously going to come in before that one does. But it doesn't really matter as long as you've got enough. So when we turn it, I think that's going the wrong way now. So I'm going to go the opposite way. Now there isn't much tension on this just at the moment. So if I've got this flipped the wrong way, I wouldn't actually know at this point. So just keep turning it. If you haven't got space, then you can ratchet it like that, but that's going the wrong way, see, so I'm going to flick the toggle and we're going to go that way. And I just need to hold that as well, otherwise it'll just go backwards and forwards, so keep hold of that. And we're going to keep going, it's starting to pull all tight now. We've got plenty of thread left, so that's good. And get it nice and tight. Just like with any restraining device like the straps or the tension bar, it's got to be tight. If it moves, then it's not secure. Okay, so you'd fail your test then if it wasn't secure. So that's it, that's nice and tight. Same again, you need to do something with these. I know I said we're not going to use these hooks, but you'd hook them up, you'd do whatever you needed to do to stop them from dragging on the floor. Okay. So we're going to release this now because we've got to demonstrate securing it, but also releasing it. So we're going to flick the toggle the opposite way now, and that'll bite in, and that'll wind it that way. It goes slack enough, so go as far as you think. I think if we go much further, they're going to drop out, so we'll leave it at that. Unhook that. Swap hands. Unhook that. And then you're going to put these back where we got them from. So the low tensioning device, what we've got here is a handle, and when that locks down, it clicks there to stop that from coming back up again. To get the handle up, you've got to rock that back and lift the handle up. Now this isn't a ratchet like it'd be like the ratchet straps or the chain tensions that we've seen. It just moves about, I don't know, 20mm. So if it slides in and out when it's open. And if we look at that now, if you watch there, how much it moves, I'd say that's about 20mm. Okay, so when you're wedging this in here, you push it firmly against one end so that you know where you're at. Open the handle up, that'll allow it to slide in and out. And you need to guess what's about 20mm. It's very rare you'll get this right on the first attempt. So I'm using my fingers as a guide. I reckon they're nearly 20mm. So leave a bit of a gap there, then obviously move your fingers out of the way. Now, it's just going to start to go tight there. I'm going to need to go a little bit further. There. And that is nice and secure. Now, what's going to happen, I've got used to doing this, so I've got reasonably good at it. I know how big my fingers are. If you've got bigger fingers or smaller fingers, it doesn't matter. Just use your fingers to begin with and see how they work. If you find that it's just, you know, it's too tight, like, say for instance, now it's too tight, is that? I can't go any further. So then open it back up again, and then just judge how much of a gap you left last time, and leave a little bit more this time. Like that. Or, if you've left too much of a gap, it's still going to be small, so that's not good either. So just use something, like I say, your fingers at the back of there, just as a guide. So yeah, to release it, just put pressure on with your hand there so that will release that. Okay, if I don't, I can't do that, so pressure on there. Slide it back in. And put that back wherever you found it. Thanks for watching our training video. It's designed to be punchy and to the point, so if there are any parts of it that you don't fully understand, make sure you ask your instructor before you go on test. You can watch this video again and again. That's what it's designed for, to help it sink in. We've also got a printout that you can use and make notes on. So if you haven't got a copy of this already, make sure you contact our office and get one from there. Also make sure that you've had practice with the different load securing devices. We have a load securing trolley in the office, and we've got one in the back of each of our training vehicles. On the day of your test, we'll go through a mock test with you to test your driver CPC knowledge before you actually go on the test, so hopefully that'll pick up any bits that you're confused about. Make sure you're familiar with the vehicle you're using for the test. Make sure you know the location of the VTG6 plating certificate. That'll be in the cab somewhere, so you need to know where that is, and you need to understand how to read it, what all the figures mean, the train weight, the gross weight, the axle weights. Make sure you know how to open and close the rear doors. They could be locked or they could be a little bit awkward to open. Make sure you know how to open and close any side lockers, the front grille and any steps. Make sure you know the location of the battery isolator switch if it's fitted to the vehicle you're using, and how to switch it on and off. How to open and maybe unlock the fuel cap. Make sure you know where the tachograph and speed limiter stickers are and how to read them. Make sure you know the basics of using the tachograph that's fitted to that vehicle. It might be an analog tachograph or it might be a digital tachograph. Make sure you've got an understanding of how the gearbox works. You could be asked to move forward as part of the braking test, so you need to know how to put it into gear. Get familiar with the cab controls, the wipers, the indicators, the light switches, the fog lights, the hazard lights, and also the heater switches. Also make sure you've got the printout for the pre-use checklist with you. Make sure you've got that with you, because you'll need that for the part of the question. Now remember to answer all these questions as fully as possible, but try not to go on and on too much and bore the examiner to death. Remember, they want to get it over and done with as quickly as possible, so don't start talking about things you don't need to talk about. If your mind goes blank, don't panic. Just take a breath and think logically about it. Go back through all the steps again, all the points again, and hopefully you'll remember what you've forgotten. Good luck.